Yo, what's good? Big Z here, and today I'm going to show you guys my template that I start with for every song that I make. Making your own template is just a great way to have everything ready and set up so you can get your ideas down faster when they come to you. So whenever I start a new song, I go File, New from Template, and then I select this Big Z template that I've made and edited and changed over the years. And there's a good amount of stuff on this template, so it's going to take a minute to load. So this is everything that I start with every time I sit down to make a new track. So I'll go through everything I have here and why I have it. So let's jump right into it. So I set up a couple instruments, and I don't stick with these instruments the whole song while I'm creating it. It's just to get my ideas down fast. So first thing on here that I have set up is always a piano sound. This is always what I go to write my chords, write my melodies, everything in the beginning of my track. So for my piano of choice, I use Contact. I have it on the Grandeur piano. Just a good piano to get ideas down, get the ideas flowing. So from there, once you've added an instrument track from your template, you can start setting up your buses and some of the reverb sends. So on this piano, I have two reverb sends. I have my long reverb, which is about 3 seconds of decay time, and I use the large chamber setting on Valhalla Room. And then I have a short reverb to make it sound like all the synths you use and sound of this bus are in the same room. For that, I use the Valhalla Vintage Verb with only like a half a second of decay, and I usually add this to all my synths just to make it sound like they're in the same small space. Then I send all my synths, pianos, instruments, whatever to the same bus, and in this bus, I'll show you what I have. So I have this EQ set up with a low pass filter and a high pass filter on it. That's so I can automate things throughout the track. So like before the drop, if I want to sweep out the lows, I can automate that so it sweeps out all the lows on all the synths together, and vice versa with the high end. Then after that, I have OTT that compresses all the synths together, and I usually mess with this throughout the track and change some of the parameters to make it sound better once I have my ideas down. And then I have some tape saturation on there that adds some crisp high end to the sound. Then the rest of the things I have on here are mostly all for automation. So I have this filter that I can automate anytime I want in the track. I also have this reverb that I could automate before a drop or something. I can have the mix of the reverb come in. I use that sometimes I don't. It's just on there if I need it. Then I have my side chain. I start with this side chain setting. It's on 0 mix, but then I automate the mix of the side chain throughout the track. Then I also have gain on there. It's important to be able to control the volume of your buses, so use the gain to do that. So it's different in every DAW, but once you've created your bus in Logic, you're gonna wanna right click on it and hit create track. So that will make it so your track goes on the arrange window, and that's so you can automate everything that you've just added to the chain. So I've actually already automated some things for my buses. So you can see how I have these markers up here for verse, build, drop, whatever. It's just a basic template that I like to start with for the arrangement of a song. But I know that during the drop, I want the side chain to come in so all my instruments can be out of the way of the kick. So I've already automated the side chain for all my buses. Alright, so next instrument I have in my template is just a pluck layer. It's like a marimba layer from Nexus. That's so I can layer the piano or something while I'm getting the ideas down. Then I have a serum layer. And that's just a basic serum patch I made so I can get ideas down too. And both of those layers are going to the same synth bus as the piano that I showed you. Usually in the break of a song, I have a separate bass, as in the drop. It's usually just a basic bass that can like be in the background of the mix and just fill out the low end. So I start with this bass, which is just a simple Nexus bass. I usually change it at some point to maybe like a serum patch that I create myself, but it's a great starting point. So after I've written chords for a track, I usually write a lead melody over top of it. So it's good to have a lead sound already pulled up in your template. So this one, I just have a random Nexus preset as the lead sound. I always change it later and try out a bunch of different lead sounds or make my own in Serum, but it's good to have a starting point so you can write to your chords. So now I send my leads to a separate bus than my synths that I just showed you. And in my lead bus, I have the exact same things as my synth bus. It's some EQ, OTT, tape saturation, a filter, the reverb with the mix all the way down, the volume shaper for sidechain, and then the gain utility. So it's the exact same plugin chain I have on my synth bus, just on my lead bus. So after the synths and the leads, I have one more bus set up and a couple more instruments set up, and that's for the basses that I use in the drop. Here's the first bass sound I have. basic saw bass to get my bass ideas down so I can record a quick bass line. And you'll notice I already have the CLA bass plugin lined up with some compression, distortion, and chorus on the bass because I usually add that to my basses anyway. And I also have EQ on there so I can EQ it however I want. Then on top of that bass sound, I have a pluck bass. That's just a Nexus plucky bass that I end up changing throughout the song anyway. Then I have a sub bass layer. So then I'm sending those 3 basses to my bass bus. And on my bass bus, I have some EQ so I can cut out the low end or whatever if I need it. And I also have some OTT that's compressing them together. Then I have a filter that I can automate throughout the track. And then I also have my sidechain on there as well. So then for my kick, I always end up changing the kick, but I always have a kick in there just as a placeholder so I don't have to find one and worry about finding one while I'm in the creative process of writing a song. So here's the kick that I just have in there. I have the BPM of the track set to 123, which I could change if I want or just leave it there. So then you'll see all these empty drum tracks that are labeled but have no drums in them. And that's because it's just easier to do it this way. It's way faster for my workflow. So on each one of these, I have a transient designer, which is Logic's enveloper that I can use to shape the sound. And I also have some EQ that I can use to cut out the lows or EQ the drums that I want. So I don't have to pull up those plugins later. I can just go into my sample library, drag and drop the clap sounds or whatever that I want, and it's already set up on this track. So I usually have all my drums minus the kick going to the same reverb here. And it's a reverb send that's going to some Bahala room. I usually start on this dark room setting with about 0.6 of a second of decay. A really cool trick I learned that you should do on your reverb send is put a transient designer before the reverb and have it take out the attack sound of the transients of your synths before the reverb gets the signal. It'll make the reverb sound way more clean. It'll sound way better in your mix, trust me. After the reverb, I always EQ my reverb, so I have this pulled up so I can EQ it however I want. So that's the short reverb I have on all the drums to make them sound like they're in the same room together. I also have this other drum reverb, that's the long drum reverb, that I've turned off for all the drums, but I can add it in if I want. And that's just a longer reverb with a longer decay time. So all these empty drum tracks are the exact same, they're just labeled a little bit differently. They're all just being sent to the drum bus and being sent to the drum reverb. So in my drum bus, it's kind of similar to my other buses. I just have a little OTT compressing it, about 10%. Then on top of that, I have FabFilter Pro C, so I can hone in the compression more, how I want it, and mess with the threshold and ratio and stuff like that. Then I have some Bahala room that I have off, so I can automate the drums during the build-up or something to add more reverb. Then I have some gain, so I can automate the gain of all the drums too. So that's pretty much it for my template. I use this as a starting point for every track. It takes a little while to set up and get it how you want it, and I've made a lot of edits to it over the years, but in the end, this makes my workflow so much faster and makes starting a song so much easier than starting on a blank page every time. So I highly suggest you make your own template, make it however you want it, take the time, customize it. It'll definitely be worth it in the end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed these tips. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Spotify below. Other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.